To the speaker's office.
Oh.
Okay.
Can we get a shot over here, please?
Thank you. Thank you.
Can we get a shot over here? Right here, please.
Yeah, that's housing. Okay,
Turn around.
these are off.
Turn
I'm
around.
gonna hand these off.
Turn
I
around.
think there's some right. Thank you, Nicole.
Turn around. Here we go. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Cheers. Say cheers.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll take a picture. Okay, so one more. Okay, ready? Okay. Cheers, everyone.
You're so good at this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We just love you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, let's go to
Where we're seated.
Okay, thank you so much.
Come on.
They go to the Katie and Timothy.
Introduce children or families or what? Huh?
So good morning, thank you for being here. I'm Tanya Ortiz-Franklin, the LA Unified School Board member for District 7, and we are just so grateful to have some fierce female leaders with us and our scholars. Can we say good morning to the Gonzalez family and the Hinshaw family?
I would like to actually welcome you both here, and from the deepest bottom of our hearts, thank you for everything that you've done as leaders, as women, in supporting the families. Local, just as interim superintendent, I want to welcome you. The schools are the centers of our communities. This child tax credit represents such a relief to our families. 81% of our families will benefit from this tax credit. And so I can't thank you enough for what you're doing to get essential services into our youngest students and our youngest citizens. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. Thank you.
Okay.
Right on time?
Thank you very much for that welcome. Thank you very much for all of the staff who have been working to put together this press conference and the visit from the Speaker of the House of Representatives. We're so thankful for the work that you have put into making this day possible. Let's all give all of LAUSD and the Child Care Center a big round of applause. We thank our board members. We thank the president of the board. We thank the board member that represents this particular district. And so we're here today. We're here today because we want to share with this community and across this country the fact that we have this child tax credit that is extraordinarily important. A lot of people in the Congress of the United States worked on it, and I give credit to a woman who is the chair of the Appropriations Committee. Her name is Rosa DeLauro, who have been working for years, first of all, to ensure that there is a tax credit, and it's, of course, in law now, but this is different. This is different because it is responding to the pandemic, recognizing that parents had lost their jobs, recognizing where there were sometimes two parents working. They could not provide for the family in the way that they had because one of those parents was laid off or the job shut down altogether. And so I want you to know that this response is about making sure the children have food on the table. It's about making sure they have a safe place to live and a roof over their heads. It's about making sure they have the clothing that they need to go back to school. It is about this government supporting the families of this country in an extraordinary and most unusual way. But, as I said outside, we got this and started this in the House of Representatives. And we were able to do some things that some never thought could be done. Aside from the CARES Act, the special money that we put out in December, and then the American Relief Plan, where we're helping families, we're helping children, we're helping businesses and small businesses in particular. None of this could be possible without the Speaker of the House of Representatives. I want you to know that I am pleased to introduce to you, to our children, the families, to the staff, and to everyone present, that this woman, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, the first ever to elected a woman, first to be elected in this country, in the history of this country, serving in her second term, is a powerhouse.
Yes.
And when she speaks, everybody listens, they're better. And when she is determined to make something happen, no matter what the odds are. And I could go back and I could tell you some wonderful stories about how Obamacare came into existence. And when they held out on the opposite side of the aisle, she would not close down the assembly until she got that vote. She got the vote for Obamacare, but these are the kinds of things that she does every day. And we are very pleased that she's here today. She's traveling across the country. She's in state after state. And whether it's talking about the child tax credit, or it's talking about rental assistance, or it's talking about small businesses, or she's dealing with something that is on the agenda in front of us all right now. We call it the jobs bill. It is the infrastructure bill. It is huge. And so we're dealing with that. We're dealing with what is happening with the ability for people to vote and not to be interfered with, to be suppressed. She's dealing with not only that from two levels, one being a huge bill, H.R. 1, that will undo some of the harm that has already been done in the states in suppressing the vote. In addition to that, the John Lewis bill that we're ready to introduce and pass, and that will ensure that the decision by the Supreme Court that overturned really what we understood in Section 5, that ensured that those jurisdictions that had laws or were creating laws that would undermine everybody's ability to vote is overturned. And so we want to get that all cleaned up. But she is in the leadership of all of this. And she goes from meeting to meeting, from committee to committee, to the White House, to the Secretary of the Treasury, the Secretary of the Fed, on and on and on, making sure that she uses her time and her influence to take care of the people of this country. And she does it well. And don't let that smile fool you. She can get real tough, okay? And that's how she gets it done. Give her a big round of applause. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to move right into this child tax credit. And as you know, this is so important. And some of our families have already received their checks in the mail. So those people who were already in the IRS system, basically, just as of July 15, got a check. And they're going to get another one. And they're going to get another one. Because this will go on until December. And guess what? You know what the Speaker has said? We got to make this permanent. she is here today, and she's been meeting with our parents already. And so these parents are very special. They're here at the Bradley Center. I won't go into the whole history of the center and the Maxine Waters Employment Preparation Center, but working with, in addition to having the school named after me, working with my Black Women's Forum years ago, we realized that childcare had to be important to the parents being able to go to school. And thus this child care center, and are we proud of it?
Yes.
Where's all the personnel of the child care center? Where are the teachers and the principal and the, please raise your hand.
Principal Mitchell.
Where? And so here are the families that are participating in this child tax care press conference. We have parent Ana Maria Gonzalez, there she is, and from her family, the students that attend here, Benjamin, age 4, Jordy, age 7, and Nathan, age 9. And now on the left-hand side, I have Raven Henshaw, Mrs. Henshaw, the parent here, and she had 2 students here. She's got Sadie, age 4. And Timothy, age 2. Now, was I correct in saying that you both have received your payments? Were you surprised?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna ask you a little bit about what it means and what you felt when you received it, and what can it do additionally for your family at this time of the pandemic. Please share with us. Nancy Pelosi, I want you to hear from our parents, and I want you to be able to discuss with them exactly.
School, uniforms, etc. As everyone knows, while the pandemic was fully going on, its kids were at home, they were eating us for house and home, so this absolutely helped with that. It's allowed us to sign them up for different enrichment programs and sports programs, so it was definitely a great help, just a wonderful surprise.
Ms. Gonzalez, what does it mean to you to have this extra money come in?
To be honest, it was such a good help with me not being employed because my school shut down and we couldn't go back in person. It was such a help with being able to cover part of the rent and just put more food on the table. That's how it was helpful to me, and then just being able to make sure that they have what they need for school starting in September and August.
You mentioned rent. That's very important.
With the jobs that don't pay enough and rent is going up every single time, it's really hard with me being the only parent working. So, I mean, I just want to say thank you because that did help out a lot and it's helping. And from the bottom of my heart, we really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Well, Maxine talked about the kinds of meetings I attend. None more valuable than hearing directly from the people we're here to help what it means to them. Because that helps us take the message back that it has reached, and we're working very hard to make sure it reaches everyone who is eligible, but also that we need to make it as permanent. And that's a challenge right now in terms of the cost. but we think the cost is worth it because of what it means in your lives. I said to them earlier that day, the Gonzalez family and the Hinshaw family were our VIPs today. Their words were the most important that any of us could hear, because they talked about the impact of public policy and what it means to families and what it means to children. Madam Chair talked about Rosa DeLauro, the Chair of Appropriations. For 20 years, she's been fighting for this. But Joe Biden in the White House really made it happen. That's why we call it the Biden tax credit, but I call it the Biden tax cut, because that's really what it amounts to. And it also is called, we call it Social Security for Children. This is so important for the children. Maxine knows, and we go back, way back, before either of us was in Congress, I had no intention of running for Congress, but my motivation was that 1 in 5 children in America lives in poverty. When Maxine was in the state legislature, you could see her great work there, and she later came to Congress, but I left home for the children. And this is part of what we're having for the children, is lower costs for families, bigger paychecks for families, and cleaner government for our country, so that policies for the children can succeed. I thank Maxine for her kind words. I accept them on behalf of all of the House Democrats who make any of the things that we have done possible. And just to say there isn't any of that Maxine hasn't played a key role in. And it's about whether it's housing. It's the gospel of Matthew. When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was homeless, you sheltered me. When I was needed this, that, or the other thing. When I was in prison, you visited me. Everything Maxine has been on the forefront. Now is the first woman and the first African-American, so the first African-American woman to chair the Financial Services Committee. She carries enormous. So when she sings my praises, she just means Nancy pays attention to the chairs of committees who have so much to do. As we gather here for the child tax credit, and in 2 days, the next checks will come. The next checks will come in 2 days, Sadie, isn't that good? We also want to say that this is part of the rescue package. And the rescue package has in it funds to keep people from being evicted and from eviction. And Maxine Waters wrote that language last year in the year-end bill, and then the further language in the what we call the rescue package. In the rescue package was a child tax credit. But as we go forward for the children, we'll have, what you all know, we'll have universal pre-K. We will have a big transformative investment in child care. We will have family and medical leave, 12 weeks paid, and we will have a big commitment to home health care for children, for people with disabilities, for elders, so that parents can work. As we've said in the other room, children learning, parents earning. That's a good formula for our families. But again, these ideas about moratorium on eviction, how to help renters, how to help mom and pop tenants, landlords and the rest, all came out of Maxine Waters' committee. But she also was, her reach was very pervasive in all the bills to make sure that communities of color, previously underrepresented communities, previously under addressed in terms of whether it's COVID or whatever, were written into the law so that we have the outreach to get the job done. It's a pretty exciting time. It's an exciting time. We have a president of the White House who has the courage, the confidence that this is the right thing for the American people, strengthening America. We build our infrastructure, that's a wonderful thing, but we must build the human infrastructure. It's about the strength of our families. So I'm excited to meet the Gonzalez family, and we'll take your message back, and if you have some more things, perhaps Nathan has something he wants to say. No, you sure? Oh, you do? We got something to say? Benjamin actually goes here. And here we are in the Ethel Bradley Early Education Center. What work could be more important than early education? And we're here in a place that is part of the Maxine Waters Employment Preparation Center. So this value system has been there, and when I say listening to them is the most important thing, because we take back ideas about how to shape policy. Well, Maxine's been doing that for a number of years now, and it translates into public policy, springing from meeting the needs, understanding the needs, meeting the needs, public policy for the people. And it really is the most important thing. The strength of our democracy, Maxine mentioned some of the voting rights. The strength of our democracy is a strong working class, middle class, and those who aspire to the middle class. To keep our democracy strong. It's under attack, both in many ways, and we are there to protect it. I always say the middle class has a union label on it because that's how we got a middle class in the first place. But these are some of the debates we're having in Washington. But getting back to the children, first and foremost, when people ask me, what are the three most important issues facing the Congress? I always say the same thing. Our children, our children, our children. Their health, their education, the economic security of their families, including pension security for their grandparents and the rest. A clean, safe environment in which they can thrive, and a world at peace in which they can reach their fulfillment. So I thank Maxine for her leadership in so many ways over such a long period of time. I want to join her in thanking the LA Unified School District, the representatives, the superintendents who are here, and the full members of the board. Thank you all. And unless the children have any comments, questions, or whatever else, would you say? Okay? She said thank you to Nancy and Maxine. I'll take that back. Anything? Jordy looks like he's got something on his mind.
Okay, you say whatever you want to say.
They are the future, and that is our purpose. Our
Okay, well,
purpose
say,
is
you can say it, say it to Nancy, tell her.
Thank you, because I can eat now.
all right. Okay. But it is an exciting time. When we go back, we will be, again, right now we're trying to make sure that everybody who can applies for the eviction moratorium resources makes that available, and of course the child tax credit, which makes all the difference, and even more difference for children under 6. So it's very thoughtful in how it is prepared, and to see that. Now make sure you understand this. This is a stimulus to the economy. You're going to spend the money, right? You're going to buy things for school, to get ready for school and the rest, injecting demand into the economy, creating good paying jobs as we meet the needs of the children. Maxine, thank you again for your boundless leadership. We could be here past midnight just listening to all the different difference that Maxine has made in every way. Always values-based, always visionary to the future, always knowledgeable about the issue, always strategic in how she goes forward, and able to draw so much support. That's why she's such a great leader. Madam Chair.
Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House of Representatives. I want to thank you for coming to South Los Angeles today. Families are up against. By half. And so many of those families who don't have quite enough are going to benefit mightily from this program. And I thank you for your leadership, and I thank you for being here in South LA. Thank you. Let's give Nancy a big round of applause.
California will be 90% of the children will receive the test.
Yes, well, of course, and we're going to get some help from Marcus here, because the press gets very aggressive and they'll start fighting each other. We've got to make sure he will point them out and call on them, and that way we'll be safe.
I always say to them, you see the respect we pay for Washington, Jefferson, and Lincoln, and many of our founders and leaders over time. But they would not want us to spend our time can't start until the kids stop jumping around and laughing. I said, no, that's the perfect backdrop for this. The sound of the future, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why we're here. They're the voices that need to be heard. But you said it so beautifully, because you do not know. I mean, it could be a teacher, could be a dog, could be anything, but we want kids to reach their fulfillment. And this is one way that we can do it. And by the way, when we talk about these issues, this is an investment. It is not a cost. It will bring money back to the economy, as I mentioned earlier, but nothing brings more money back to the Treasury than the investment in education. early childhood, as we have early childhood, K through 12, higher ed, post-grad, lifetime learning for our families, our workers. So, and any investments in education for the children are not a cost, they're an investment, and they reduce the national debt, not increase it.
Thank you. Okay, next we can go to Hunter Lee.
Maxine, did you want to say something?
Well, no, except I want to thank the Los Angeles Sentinel representative for being here. And I think Nancy Pelosi has defined it so well, based on what we care about, what we put at the top of our agenda, and how we've been able to do what no other Congress in the history of this country has ever done. And when we talk about the way that we organize, and it does cost money, and we do get a lot of resistance, but we believe that investment in human potential is what will keep this country great and will move this country forward. And so I'm so very pleased and excited. When I put together my flyer about this this event, I put together a flyer, and I said, if someone will hand me my flyer, what I said was, I did not want the language oftentimes of politicians in Congress, because we speak a certain way and we understand what we're saying. But for this flyer, in both English and Spanish, instead of describing it the way we would normally do, I put how to get your money. And we say new cash payments for your children, and it describes how to do it. And so I wanted in every way that I could to make it plain so that people would understand it in the Spanish language also. And so I took it back to Congress and I gave it to Rosa DeLauro, and they passed it out among our colleagues, and many of them went back to take it to their districts so that people would understand right away what this is all about. So thank you, Nancy Pelosi, for your leadership. Thank you for willing to spend money. Thank you. Thank you for willing to put up the fights. And thank you for the long hours you take convincing people. She is so good at convincing people. She takes the time to talk. And when I'm with her and I'm watching her do this, I think to myself, oh my God, how can she be so patient with explaining something? She's good at it, and that's why she's successful. Thank you, Nancy. Any more questions on child tax rate?
Yes. We'll go to Ms. Lamar with Kay Bailey.
Hi there, ladies. Bring these greetings from, of course, our Karen Slater, General Manager. Thank you both for being here. We really, really do support the work that you do. We thank you as these families do. How can we support you in getting this permit? What kind of battle are we looking at ahead of us with that? I know she said, Madam Speaker, that you are great at convincing. And both of you together, I know you got it. But what can we do here, these families that are so appreciative, and those in the community, what can we do to help you make this more permanent for these families that really need it?
Well, I appreciate your question. As I alluded to earlier, but I'll make it more clear, the effectiveness is the most persuasive argument. I, in my own district in San Francisco, have thousands of people who do not take advantage of the earned income tax credit, because they just don't know. And so what we want people to do is to know. Communications have enabled us to reach people in real time and in different ways, but not everybody is attuned to the technology and the rest of that. So what we're doing here today is very important. Communities, community groups that are culturally, linguistically appropriate, as well as giving people trust in them, need to help us reach as many people as possible so that they take advantage of the Biden tax cut, I call it. And that's the best argument, that the opportunity was there, that people took advantage of it, that it's making a difference in their lives. As was said earlier by Anna and by Raven, as the difference it makes in their lives. We do have a debate about the cost, and again, we believe that our budget should be a statement of our national values. What is important to us as a nation should be how we prioritize our investments and their effectiveness. So effectiveness is eloquence when it comes to trying to persuade the policymakers. So to the extent that you can make sure that people take advantage of this, as the Ravens family has and Anna Maria's family had, I thank you for your generosity of spirit, time, and privacy to share your story. But that's the most important thing, showing that it works. That's how we can make it stronger and longer.
So Nancy Pelosi, just in terms of the community, Ada Lamar is from KJLH, the Stevie Wonder station. And we have who recently changed stations, having been at KJLH, Dominique DePrima, who is with now KBLA. So I have to give them both time. And so there's Dominique.
Okay.
Good afternoon. It's so wonderful to see you here in the heart of South LA, not on the perimeter, but all the way in the heart. It really means a lot. Of course, Congresswoman, we always see you in the heart of South LA. The question is, you know, in the environment that we're in right now with the polarization and such, as we see the possibility, I'm not putting a jinx on it, but we see the possibility of not retaining control of both houses. How do we protect the gains that we've been able to make, such as the Biden child tax credit, which are so important to our communities, in this environment?
Well, let me just, taking from the end of your question and work back. Our members who are saying, well, there may not be enough money to do everything under the cap that they've given us, their argument is this tax credit is never going to be taken away. It won't, as long as it has the constituency of the families, and again, a broad base of families, not just the, you know, it goes up to many families in our country. They think that that is the best argument, that if it's not permanent at this moment, that it will not be taken away. Like you just couldn't take Social Security away, even though they try to privatize it, you can't take it away. I don't ever entertain any thoughts of not maintaining the majority. That you always have to run in a way that makes sure you don't assume anything or take anything for granted. But I do think that when people understand what is at stake, we will prevail. But more, just to Maxine's point earlier, right now there's an attempt on the part of some to undermine the integrity of our elections. The initiatives for the suppression of the vote, even since what they did in 2020, are undemocratic, unpatriotic, and undermine the sanctity of the vote. So that's why we also, we are hopefully, not this week, but next week, going to be able to, and maybe it's 2 weeks, we have to see how the hearing process goes, pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. That's H.R. 4, but we also have to pass H.R. 1, which is the bill that John Lewis wrote the first 300 pages of. To do. There's really another dangerous thing, if I just may add this one thing. They tried to suppress the vote. And now they're making it harder for people to vote, even on top of their past suppression. But they've added an interesting ingredient. It's called nullification, on how they will nullify the election. And we just can't let that happen. So we won't. But it is, that's why we have to do it by law, and we have that as our challenge as we go back to vote on these other major pieces of legislation. But again, that for people, if people know, President Lincoln said public sentiment is everything. With it you can accomplish almost anything, without it practically nothing. But for people, public sentiment to weigh in, people have to know. So that's why we're so happy to see all of you and take the message of a child tax credit. If there's one thing we want people to know is that children are of the highest priority to us. That's why this budget places that investment at the top of the list, the Biden child tax credit.
All right.
Thank you, Congresswoman and Speaker of the House. It's an honor to see both of you and happy to welcome you here to South Central Los Angeles. You know, with money, if any government subsidy or money comes, with some good, some bad. And my question is, what layers of protection do you have in place that will prevent fraud with this tax credit, and to make sure that the families that actually need and qualify for this money will receive it? It's a two-part question, but everywhere across the board, PPP, unemployment, there's so much fraud that sometimes the people who actually need the money don't get it. What layers of protection are in place for this tax?
Well, first of all, let me just say that those families who have received checks right away are in the system. They're in the IRS system. They have filed, and we know everything that needs to be known about their income level and whether or not they qualify. This is a program that understands that not only are we dealing with those families who have very little, we're dealing with the middle class also. And when we do that, and we look at the tax returns, we know what the qualifications are. Single individual head of household up to $112,000 for what did I say? Yeah, 112. Up to a single, two people in the household, up to $150,000. And so that's already set out, and they can't get any more. They can't be denied. They qualify. They're in the system. They've filed their tax returns and such, and so we're comfortable with that. And so we, even though, as you allude to, there are some programs where you have more attempts to beat the system and to create fraud. This one is harder to do because, like I said, those who are in the system already, we have the basic information. Those who are not in the system, they qualify through following the instructions here about where to call and how to get started.
Which means that they didn't file for taxes because of income.
They may not have filed, or there may have been a divorce. There may be any kinds of things that have happened that would cause them to have to perhaps make a telephone call into the IRS system that's overseeing this. So we feel pretty comfortable about it.
So if someone is receiving, welfare benefits right now, how do they qualify for this tax credit, or do they qualify?
Well, one of the reasons this program is so important is, don't forget, some laws were instituted that cut back on welfare, that basically relieves people of welfare who've been in for 5 years or so. We have families out here with no income, living with family members, living with friends, living in apartments that have been divided up into 5 different families when it only has 2 bedrooms. And so we hope that these people will go and follow these instructions and file so they can get into the system.
Okay, if you filed tax returns the last 2 years, no action is needed. And then they have the following instructions if you did not. But let me say, we don't want any waste, fraud, or abuse in anything that we do, and we subject what we do to pretty harsh scrutiny. And that's why we have nearly $1 trillion in money to spend in our bills for people who have avoided paying their taxes. I'm not talking about manipulate the system. I'm talking about breaking the law. So I don't want it to be a system where in some places, the IRS, up until now, has spent more time going after low-income housing tax credits or low-income tax credit violations rather than billionaires who have avoided illegally paying taxes. So in every aspect of our system, we want the integrity to be respected, but we don't want people to be afraid to sign up for fear that they may be focused on unnecessarily. Should we go to?
Yeah. Can I ask a follow-up on the bill itself?
We do have,
As a,
excuse me,
oh, sorry.
all right, we're gonna go to Sue Favor with the waiver next.
Thank you.
The local first.
Hi, it's an honor to be.
We can't hear you.
Sorry, it's an honor to be in your presence. Thank you very much for coming.
I heard that.
I guess, how long has it been since something like this has been given or applied, by the presidential administration or Congress?
I'm sorry, it was hard to hear.
How long has it been since such a similar tax credit has been given to children by the United States government?
Well, we had a tax credit when George Bush was president, a one-time kind of thing. When we were doing, I wanted a stimulus package, I wanted infrastructure and the rest. They said, no, they just do tax code. This was when he was still president, so about 2007. And it was just an interim. But that was Rose's sort of, this is a moment that we can at least do this. But it wasn't an ongoing program.
So this is truly revolutionary in that.
Oh, this is transformative. This is necessary, of course, respected now as an absolute, and this is transformative. There's nothing, I should say, nothing like this. We had used it because we were always trying to get it in someplace. But this is you have it this week, month, you have it next month, you have the month after. It's quite a remarkable thing.
And then just one more thing, Madam Speaker, just to clarify, your next steps on getting this to be a more permanent thing, or what again?
Well, we are writing now the next bill, which is the Human Infrastructure Bill. It would take a lot of money to make it permanent, but as I say, we consider it permanent. Now, how do we, every step of the way, ensure that? The most eloquent statement is that it is effective, that people are taking advantage of it, and that they are sharing with us the difference it makes in their lives.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Don Davis with Our Weekly. Do you have a question?
Hey, yeah, real quick. So it sounds like, in the future when you're doing economic stimulus, if you can market it around the fact that it will directly impact children, it'll be hard for people to say no. Am I on the right track with that?
This is so widely popular in the public. I'm not speaking for the Republicans in Congress because not one of them voted for this. Not to get political here, not one of them voted. But for what we're doing now. See, what we're doing now is in the rescue package. What we want to do into the future is in the next package. So again, in the rescue package, we didn't get one vote on the other side. So our message is to the American people, and their support for this is what is important. I would hope that it could change the minds of some of the other folks on the other side of the aisle if they hear from their own constituents how important this is. But they probably go home and take credit for it when they won't even vote for it.
Okay, all right. Next, we would like to go to Spanish language media. So, Univision Telemundo, Estrella, any questions from you all about the child tax credit?
What would you say to families who are scared or who think they will have to pay this back within the next year?
I'm sorry, I just couldn't.
What would you say to the families who are scared or who think that they have to pay this money back within the next year?
Yeah, this is a tax credit.
It's just an advance on what they would be filing. This is a tax credit, which means that in law already, we have tax credits. It is not as much, and that means they don't have to pay. And so this will not be doubly taxed. They're already eligible for tax credit. It's just increased.
But let me also just say, Matt, remind me, that sometimes the tax credit comes when you pay your taxes.
That's right.
Or at tax time. we made the case to the Treasury Department that we'd like to have it monthly. People can opt to just get it at the end, but we wanted it monthly for families because that's when their needs are monthly.
Spanish press?
Telemundo, Univision. Go ahead. No
With the
question?
city of LA, but we wanted to talk to Ms. Gonzalez in Spanish.
Are you okay to take a question?
Yes, I'm fine.
Esta clase de ayuda, ¿cómo le están beneficiando y qué piensa de esta ayuda?
Esta ayuda me está
¿Se puede acercar el micrófono, por favor?
Sí, ¿me escucha? Ok.
Sí.
Esta ayuda me está ayudando a mí en la forma que me ayuda a ponerle más, ayudar a pagarme la renta y terminar de poner comida en la mesa porque la renta está subiendo y los trabajos no están subiendo. O sea, el trabajo está igual, no está pagando más y nos está pagando menos. Y esta ayuda nos está ayudando a nosotros para poder poner la comida en la mesa y pagar la renta honestamente.
¿Qué otra ayuda esperaría o le gustaría que recibiera?
En subir los pagos de las gentes que trabajan en las escuelas. Porque yo fui al colegio y honestamente que me quieran pagar el mínimo cuando yo fui a la escuela, que agarré mi bachillerato, no es justo tampoco.
Perfecto. ¿Algo más que quiera agregar?
Ya es todo, muchas gracias.
Okay, all right.
So watch times represented by the Sentinel.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you take care of the watch time?
I can definitely jump in because I actually had a question for you. So thank you so much, Ruben, for taking the time out and energy. Has this alleviated more things for your children and just the overall family dynamic? How have you been feeling relieved because of this resource?
Awesome. Great question. I've been fortunate enough during the quarantine and during the pandemic to still be working. My family and my household hasn't really lost out on any funds because of the pandemic, and I understand that's truly a blessing. But with the tax credit, it has just given me more confidence to be able to put my kids in certain programs, different art programs, different type of STEM programs that I might have passed on prior to having the credit, just trying to make sure that I had money to for the essential bills. But now with the additional funds, it's given me an opportunity to really delve into enrichment programs for my children. And I truly think that's so important because in such, I guess, disadvantaged neighborhoods, we don't often have that opportunity. And so I think it's a great chance to give them something that I might not have been able to offer before.
Would you say that you feel like you can now focus on the quality of life a little bit better?
And that is one of the things we talked to President Obama about and President Biden now is when we talk about the basic fundamentals of housing, food security, job security, all of that, there's another element that people have to understand, and that is mentoring. When people have to hold down 2 jobs to barely be able to put food on the table, and sometimes not even that, they don't have time to mentor their children, and their neighbors are doing the same thing, so they're not able to mentor. So this mentoring factor, as you said, the enrichment that the children are now getting because of this partially because of this check is very important. But to the extent that parents can have more time with their children for the mentoring, it's so very, very important.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're gonna take just 2 more questions. Alex, we'll go to you.
All right, just a follow-up on this, on the bill itself. Helping kids is the cause of your life.
That's right.
This is the biggest anti-child poverty bill in the history of the country. For you, personally, as a mom, as a grandmother, as the first female speaker, what does it mean to you to meet with people like this and to see the difference that it's made?
Well, I appreciate your question. As a mother of 5, a grandmother of 9, my first statement is, aren't these children well behaved? Really, they're getting into it, I mean. Who knows what might come next for them. But not just because of my motivation, being mother of 5, and then hearing way back when my children were babies, that 1 in 5 children in America went to sleep hungry at night. 1 in 5 children in America lives in poverty. In America, the greatest country that ever existed, how could we tolerate such a thing? But it exists, and it still exists, and it's been exacerbated by COVID. So we saw this as an opportunity to just transform people's thinking about how we go. So that's why when we have our, shall we say, exuberances about one bill or another, I say to them, this is one of the biggest Care Act, millions, tens of millions more people getting health care. That was a pillar. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Affordable Care Act. What we are doing now for the children, for the families, is a pillar of economic health and just certainty in terms of their security, education, and the rest. So what we'll do, to your prior question, is the bill that was passed by the Senate is appropriate. It addresses many of the needs. It is an infrastructure, a physical infrastructure bill. It is not a human infrastructure bill. And if we're going to build back better, which is the mantra of Joe Biden, we have to do so by involving many more people. It can't be a perpetuation of what went before, unless we, and it will be, unless we get the second bill. And the second bill, again, it frees up women and moms and dads to be in the workplace with all the things I mentioned: child care, family medical leave, home health care workers, universal pre-K, the list goes on. If we do that, it's a liberation. It's a liberation so that people can participate. We also have equity in what we want to do, which the bill that passed does not have. Equity in terms of transportation, other projects that have destroyed neighborhoods and that we want to undo, but not in a way that gentrifies neighborhoods and puts people out. So everybody's been thinking very carefully, because they bring to it a history of knowledge of what works, what doesn't, what was well-intentioned, but is not so great actually. So this, I mean, to me, this says to people of color, previously underrepresented people in these trades and in these jobs and all the rest, not just jobs, but equity, businesses participating. And Maxine has been a complete champion on that, to make sure businesses in a minority community, women, veterans, and all that, can participate, because the queen of giving them access to capital.
Yeah.
Access to capital, but with this bill, also access to a trained workforce, looking different from the workforce from before. Big, so when we have our, shall we say, I like this, I don't like that, whatever it is, at the end of the day, it will be one of the biggest initiatives that any of us has ever participated in. And we're grateful to Joe Biden for his fidelity to it. He said, just so you know, he said, and I've heard him say it in the room with the Republicans, I want to find our common ground on infrastructure. Where can we agree? But I will not limit my vision to that, because we have to build that better. Now, some of us say, build that better with women.
Do you think you have the votes for that? Do you have the vote for both bills?
A couple of more
We don't have a bill yet.
from.
All right. We don't have a bill yet.
Right.
But when we bring it to the floor, we will have the vote.
So is this the case?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Does KBC have a question?
Yes, off topic, the census came out this morning, and the numbers for California may lose a congressional
seat. Any thoughts on that, Madam Speaker?
Well, I haven't seen all the numbers yet. I know that that was what was anticipated. But whatever our numbers are, our power will be great in the Congress of the United States. But it is a recognition. This is the first time since, when was the first time? 1897, 1890, no, excuse me, 1798 or something was the first census. This is the first time since then that the white population is declining. It was always on the upswing. So that speaks to the beautiful diversity of America. It speaks to how that population will, the demographics will weigh in politically. But again, I haven't seen the numbers. And when I do, I just don't like to work off of samplings. I want to see the numbers. But since you mentioned off topic, let me just say about California, I want everybody to get out the vote. I have my own operation working to get out the vote, making calls and that, to defeat the recall of our governor. Everything we've talked about here, whether it's free meals for all kids in public schools, whether it's expanding health care to the beautiful diversity of our state, whether it's housing, a longer moratorium than any other place in the country. The list goes on. People are feeling the pain of COVID. Many of his initiatives have alleviated that, and we want, but I'm a grassroots organizer, so my whole thing is your campaign has to own the ground, just turn out the people, and that's what we have our operations doing, to turn out the vote, so that we respect it, but we do not like it, and we will not, and we will defeat it, the recall. Maxine, any?
Okay, we have two more.
Oh,
yes. All right, KMBC. Is KMBC present? Question? No. Okay, with that, we'll go to Carlos.
If I can follow up on that, Madam Speaker. When you talk about the Democratic agenda, what is at stake for Democrats with this recall? When if Governor Gavin Newsom is defeated, especially since Governor Andrew Cuomo in New York has just left office, when you talk about 2022 and 24, with the Democratic agenda, child care, tax credit, pre-K, etc., what's at stake for the party overall?
well, what's at stake for the people of California is really the question. As I have said, the governor has acted in a very important way, and we take some credit for the resources that he enabled him. But he has implemented. He has implemented, and some places have not implemented. He has implemented, and again, he has seen the pain. He knows what he wants to do. He has a plan to get it done, and he has put it out there. What is the purpose of the recall except skullduggery? But again, the system allows for it, so we have to defeat it. But it would be really a very sad situation if we could have those people. Not one of them voted for the child tax credit. Not one of them voted to extend the moratorium or the funding for it in this tranche, this current tranche that we have now. So it's in terms of what is the purpose of governance. If you don't believe in governance, as they don't, and you don't believe in science, as they don't, you're going down a very bad path for the children and other living things. And in terms of what was coming out, you mentioned the census numbers, but we also had reports from the United Nations in preserving the planet. And that's so essential to our children. It's a health issue, the air they breathe, the water they drink, the jobs their families can have, just the moral responsibility we have to them to preserve the planet. Gavin Newsom is a champion on that. The other side doesn't even believe in it, that it's happening. So it has every aspect from the free lunch program in schools to preserving the planet, it has to be defeated. And again, with a recognition of the pain that people are feeling, concern they have about their own families and their future, and how we fight COVID. And again, on the ground, get out the vote. September 14th is the deadline.
She's your last one.
Anybody?
Madam Speaker, you recently noted your 9 trips to Afghanistan, and as we continue to see provincial capitals falling to the Taliban in Afghanistan, U.S. intelligence said that Kabul could fall within 90 days. I just wanted to know what your thoughts on that were and what it means for Afghan Defense Forces, and especially, or particularly, women in Afghanistan that had made so many gains in recent years if the country returns to Taliban rule.
Well, the women and girls in Afghanistan were something that did bring us together. Democrats and Republican women, Laura Bush, Michelle Obama, Democrats in the House and Senate, largely the women, but some of the men, about the women and girls in Afghanistan. I've probably been to Afghanistan at least 9 times. So I saw the girls in school in the hinterlands or the professionals in the capital, but they really made major advances because the U.S. was there. The problem with it is that when we went in 2001, when we went in, we did not defeat the Taliban. We routed the Taliban. They headed for the hills and beyond, and are just waiting to come back. 20 years. We just had the president of Afghanistan in the capital about 3 weeks ago when he was in the U.S., and he thanked us for the service of the families who lost loved ones or had loved ones had other problems that were not completely visible, and we made a big contribution. But our purpose was to make sure it was not a safe haven for global terrorism to hurt the United States. There are so many other places that fall into that category now that it's heartbreaking. But we have to watch and see. When we came, they were going to deploy some troops to Afghanistan to be helpful so that the Afghan forces themselves can be better able to protect the country. But it's almost 20 years. It's about 20 years. You know, when we went into Afghanistan, how many troops we had on the ground? About 200. It was not a serious effort, and the mistake was, let's go to Iraq. And we went to Iraq, we ignored Afghanistan, and here we are. In any event, the women and girls remain a very high priority. What that means for that country. I've been to their schools in the countryside where they recited poems, and definitely just to see the glory of the education of girls. So I'll close by saying this: if I ruled the world, people ask me that all the time.
Close.
They say if you ruled the world, or they say if you had a magic wand, what would you do? And it is about education. Education of women and girls throughout the world. Education of our children. And that's what's happening here. So when I came, I said to you, you're doing the most important work of all. Education of our children. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so very much. First, again, I'd like to thank all of the staff, principal and all of the staff here at the Ethel Bradley Child Care Education Center. I'd like to thank the principal of the Maxine Waters Employment Preparation Center. I'd like to thank the parents who came today and shared their stories with us. I'd like to thank the children, and then I would like to thank all of LAUSD, elected officials, board chair. I'd like to thank you all so very much. Thank you showing up today. Someone asked, how can you be helpful? There are a few ways you can be helpful. First of all, we'd like you to tell the story and carry the message from here today. But I'd love some public service time. See if you can get some public service time addressing this issue for our children. Thank you all so very much. Give yourselves a big round of applause.